or correspond to precisely one row in a context-free grammar. It's that one correspondence that was so contrived and had all those 8 axioms. Next, we're going to discuss that there are some languages that are not context-free, and we're going to derive something called the pumping lemma really quickly. First thing to note is that context-free grammars that are put into Chomsky normal form have binary grammar trees, and I didn't go over explicitly what a grammar tree is, but if I have, for instance, if I have the production of the form A to B, C, then its grammar tree would look at some point like this. So this is a grammar tree, it's just keeping track of how you can produce non-terminals. So if I have a context-free grammar in Chomsky normal form, then I always have stuff that's like this, so a non-terminal can produce at most 2 children of non-terminals. Okay, so if I have n non-terminals in my context-free grammar that's in Chomsky normal form, then by taking the contrapositive of that statement, if I have a word that's 2 to the n letters long, then there must have been some way that it produced itself so as to obtain words that are longer than 2 to the n. Okay. Yeah, pictures with 1,000 or more words. Basically, if you have a word that's 2 to the n plus 1 letters long, then the number of non-terminals in the grammar, then you have this sort of self-production here. And every word that I see from the grammar tree, so I'm going to go to the grammar tree right here. So every word that I see this dashed triangle here, I have another Q transition down here, it's the self-production. So I have another Q production here that's in a solid triangle, and so everywhere I see a Q, I can replace the dashed triangle with the solid triangle. And then upon getting to the bottom of that, I can do it again if I want, and again and again and again. So the conclusion that we make from that is that if I have a word, and the other thing to point out here is that every time that I take the substitution option, I also produce an R as many times. So if I exercise this substitution option m times, then I'm going to produce that R m times as well. So
the cool thing is instead of pumping one string, you get 2.
yeah, so you get two strings that are pumped. So if I have a word W that's longer than 2 to the n, then I can always split the string into this form. The V to the n would be the part that was derived from using that Q substitution. The Y to the n part would be the substring that was produced from that R substitution.
No, go back to it. Let's go through this. The basic thing is that when you apply your source and you split both directions, is if you get to the strings where they have to be pumped exactly the same amount. And you look at this next example, A to the n, B to the n, C to the n. If you make that copies of A, B, and C, you will allow a little extra line B before A, C before B. So that example is
pick 2 substrings no matter how you divvy that up. You either get too many A's, too many B's, too many C's, or if you choose to split the substring that contains both B's and C's, then you're going to have altogether.
Let's skip forward to how we can change your machine so it recognizes that.
Okay. Let's do that.
One question. So most computer languages are actually built as context-free grammars.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any extension of that that's commonly used that we might say a new type of compiler that might be useful?
Type. Okay. Let me understand the question. You're asking if we can implement they're written as complex-free grammars. What was the question?
Well, okay. So context-free grammars, most computer languages are actually recognized as context-free grammars by their compilers. So essentially what the compiler does is it recognizes the grammar that has been set up,
Yes.
okay? The question is it possible to talk about a compiler on this next level that can be easily written with some nicely?
Oh, yeah, for instance, so implementing a compiler using a push-down automaton?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so for instance, in C++ and Java and all that, you're working within scope, which is curly braces, a context-free grammar can easily check to see if you have matched, if everything's well formed. Because you have, all you really need is the ability to pop to see if those match.
But at the next stage, we see that there are some things that cannot be recognized as context-free grammars. So that says that maybe there's a type of computer language that can go that next step further.
Probably, as I didn't look too much into that. Judging by the complexity of Perl, that might be one of them. Okay, we briefly went over that example. Okay. The next step up in grammar is something called the type 0 grammar. We won't get into why it's called the type 0 grammar. But really, the only difference between this and a context-free grammar is that it allows a sequence of non-terminals and terminals be replaced by another such sequence. But you can never replace terminals alone with a mix. So here's an example, and this is only just to illustrate the difference between context-free and type 0. Is that I can have productions of this form, a mix of non-terminals and terminals being replaced by either terminals or another mix.
Notice you never get to put in a media message in a context.
So that's what the context means, an examination of the non-terminals with its surrounding terminals. Okay, a more powerful version of the push-down automaton is to simply add another stack to push to. We call that two-stack push-down automaton, or 2PDA for short. You can add a second alphabet for the second stack if you need it. Here's an example that does accept this A to the N, B to the N, C to the N. You see that we've made use of, for every A that we read, we pretty much just push it down, and for every B that we read, we make sure that A is on top of the stack, pop it off, and push B to the second stack. So this, I was able to get to an accepting state to this one because I need to be able to push letters at different times. I need to push them to different places to make sure that we get the matching we need.
And the motivating question for these pieces was, the open question showing the difference between these two. And then saying, what are the limitations on this type of alteration to the push-down automaton and the second step?
And it's basically the most important thing is that this can actually accept this language, so it's more powerful. Okay, now you might think that if you add more and more stacks, you gain more and more computational power, but that is not true. Any NPDA, which is going to say n equals 5, that means a PDA with 5 stacks. Any NPDA can be emulated by 2PDA. All I have to do is, in the 2PDA's first stack, I just have to push down all the stacks, contents of the NPDA, and maybe label them as 1, 2, 3, etc. So after 1 follows, or between 1 and 2 follow the contents of the NPDA's first stack. Between 2 and 3 lies the contents of the NPDA's second stack. So on and so forth. That's how the stacks are emulated. If I want to read the top of a certain stack, all I do is pop off everything up to the point of the top of that stack and then really here. And then I can read it, pop it off entirely, put something else on if I want, and then to get back, just pop it. So you pop everything off of the first stack and place it into the second stack so that I can examine that element. And then when I'm done examining it, I pop everything back off onto the first stack, and then I end up with this picture again. So that's how you emulate.
So this is kind of the same as actually having a doubly infinite where you can actually insert